Hi guys, thank you so much for coming first of all. Glad you could take out time and to make this session very fruitful and eventually like I feel like from whatever you can gain out of this session, I would see like as I told Samujal, he's gonna have like some direction to the session. But personally, I feel like it's an open sort of a house kind of a thing. So if there's anywhere you guys are confused or if like anything I'm speaking too fast or anything, just stop me, just raise your hand, just stop me, and we'll sort of just rework the conversation. The whole thing when Brahmaputra Valley Film Festival sort of called me to take this masterclass, I was like, it's very hard to give a masterclass in 1 hour, 1.5 hour or something. And like what you can impart in 1 hour is primarily like glimpses of something in terms of what I have learned. Obviously, these are two different films, and hopefully, all mainstream films which you guys hopefully have watched, from like Masaan to Gully Boy to Shersha, all these films that have like an example. And now that you know the story, once you get to know the stories about it, it will be interesting for you to go back and rewatch it and see what I said and reconnect with it. As I said, it's like the whole idea of the session is to you to gain as much as you can from the session. So just keep open sort of a flow. If there is anywhere you feel the conversation needs to go in like you feel like you want to focus on certain other things, because I know there are a lot of different aspirational there are some filmmakers here, there are some editors here, there are some people who are interested in editing, so there are different things are there. And if it gets, I don't think it's that technical, but if it's feeling like a little bit like technical or something, just raise your hand, talk about it. I will make it easily accessible for you all. Okay. And what I'm going to do is, firstly, I'm just going to give you a brief outline of what I do. Okay, like what it means to be a film editor in right now, because I have focused on Bollywood film. Recently, I did a Bangladeshi film which I supervised edit, which premiered at Toronto Film Festival, which is called Sabah. So it's primarily what a film editor does is, for people who have no idea of what a film editor does. So film editing is primarily you just like you have a script, you start with a script, and the director and the producer go and shoot the film. A director goes and shoot the film in terms of like how the script was written and how you eventually want to sort of arrive at the story. And as you go along the process of it, you like for a 2.5 hour film, you might have like a 300 hours of footage. And how do you, and it comes back to the edit table. When it comes back to the edit table, how do you construct that footage to tell your story in the best possible manner in 2.5 hour or 3 hour or mostly around that sort of a duration. And it's always when you are consolidating stories or when you are like putting together story, you have to see a larger picture that the film mentioned, like what is the core idea of the paper, and is that something reflecting. And it changes also as you go along, it changes from one thing to another, but very basic core idea thought has to be, are we able to achieve the core emotional vision of the film. So if like it was a like something like, I'll give you an example of Masaan was about these two people whose lives intersect at one point of time eventually at the end, and two people who are dealing with loss, love and loss kind of a thing. So what exactly is like, how do they merge and how do we, like by the when the end when they sit on the boat, you have this idea that how these two people are connecting, and both people have gone through a different journey of losing someone they love. And that is like, that was the core thought. How do you build that core thought in the best possible manner in 2.5 hour or 2 hours, whatever is your vision in terms of as an editor. And once the rushes come in, I sort of start editing the, I have a team of people, I have an associate editor, I have an assistant editor. We sort of start like, first they start syncing the footage, sorting the footage, then start doing the lineups. first thing I approach when I start film editing, any sort of like, I feel like film editing or series editing is such a vast sort of a domain that you have to break it down. You don't need to, if you start panicking about like, I want to see the end, where is it, like, how is it going and everything. First, you just have to construct every small scene. Every small scene is treated like, for me, is like treated like a short film in its own way. You have your beginnings, you have your middles, you have your end, and then once you put all of them together, that's when you sort of really start the edit process of it, which is, now you start seeing, okay, so the film is feeling very long, or the film is feeling like emotion is not really landing. How do I take it from here to the next level? That's the zone. Then you start analyzing, and the first round which I do as per my process is, I try to present a cut to my director. Usually every director has a different process. Some people like to just jump onto the edit as soon as their shoot is done. Some directors like to jump directly sit with the editor, they don't want to. So I have also certain directors who like to quickly jump onto the edit as soon as the shoot is done. So because we have like some sort of tuning now, over the years we have built a tuning where it's easier, like I know the work, the time gets decreased. So what I do is, and but in most of the cases with like with the Karan Johar or anyone, Neeraj or anyone, I'll present a cut where I'll sort of say with Kabir Khan or someone is like, okay, let's watch the first half today, this is my cut. So in that first half, whatever the cut I would do, I would already sort of strip down to bare minimum, and like knowing, okay, right now I can know this scene I can remove, but I will just hold it for some time till we see the first pass of it, because I know the director and the writer are very attached to it. So it's like these are pointers in my head. So I do the first cut, they see the first half, then they see the second half, then we sort of chat as to what working, and then we take on the next round of editing, which is accumulating it to a final vision, which is you are working towards a final vision. And sometimes it has happened that I am working towards a final vision where they come and say what they felt, and I'm like, okay, I'll come up with some solution. And sometimes me and director, we sort of, more like most of the time me and director is gonna, we gonna sit and we just gonna keep watching and stopping and like, hey, what should we do, how do we transition from this emotion to that emotion, is this not smooth or whatever, can we cut down on this conversation a little bit, can we remove like 1-2 lines here. So that is a constant process that keeps happening over the course of like 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, depending on how long the film was shot. Usually a Bollywood film, mainstream film, is ideally should get over in 6 months, but it all depends on how many days of shoot you are doing. Like Rocky Rani Ki Prem Kahani, we did like shoot for 100 days. Right now, Masaan we did for 35-40 days. Gully Boy we did for 75 days. And if it's spread out, so you keep editing. And also, again, like how much time, it always correlates with how much time do you have for the, from the time of edit shoot getting over to eventual release of the film. So you work towards in that, because your rest of the process need to be aligned. So you, if you are giving your edit, if your film is releasing in March, you have to give your edit cut by Jan max, because then your sound and BGM has to, like end of December you have to give, because where sound and BGM and everything else need to get done by February max to max, like mid-Feb, so they can start sending the DCPs for the whole process of it. Okay, so this is what, like in a very succinct way, like what a film editor does. Series is a very different beast. Series, when we do, it's pretty much the same, but series is like a very constant evolving process, because you cut one episode. Right now I'm cutting this show for Aryan, which is Aryan Khan. He is this is something that's going to come out in Netflix next year. And the series, we have like 8 episodes, so we talk about different we like, there are in series, what happens is when you are cutting across varied episode, you always have like your mind working, oh, what if we shift the end to this point, because you want to end on a cliffhanger, or what sort of like scene. So that process is much more longer than a feature film at times, that can go on, because you can shuffle some scenes from episode 1 to episode 3, episode 3 to episode 5, and that process will only you will be able to understand as you sort of evolve, but it's a longer process. So these are the two sort of, just to set understanding for you guys as to what really an editor, in terms of my experience in terms of Bollywood, what I've been doing. I'm sure the process varies. Some editors here, I'm sure, will say they'll have a completely different process, and the regional work completely differently because of the money, time, effort, everything is much more smaller, so you sort of work very effectively and very smartly also at times. So that's pretty much like the basic intro of it. If there's any question or any thoughts, just raise your hand and we'll sort of pick it up from wherever one feels like. Okay. Now I'll let Samujal sort of start over.
Nitin, first I would like to ask a moment where you felt editing was the key to the success of it.
Success of?
The particular scene or the film.
Oh, moment I felt the key to.
When you felt like editing made it a success, you know?
So, should I show one scene first clip?
Yes.
So, can we open the bench? So, just giving you a very. How many of you here have seen Masaan? Okay, great. Everyone pretty much have seen it. For people who haven't seen it, I'll just set up a very basic context to what the scene is. So Vicky fell in love with this girl, and he works on ghats as a person in Banaras, as a person who works, who burns dead bodies, and that's like a primary job of his and his family for years. And it's something that he wants to break out through the course of the film, that he doesn't want to do it, but he's like studying, he's sort of doing various things to eventually leave this thing. And it starts off with Vicky sort of initiating this whole sort of a thing. He's just lost his loved one. There's this girl he loves called Shweta Tripathi in the beginning of the film. And while one of the nights, while he's burning the body, he realizes it's her body that has come because the bus she was in had met an accident, and she has come in on the same thing. And this is like after the whole night he's burnt her body, and there are many other bodies and everything, and he's like really broken down by the shock of it. And this next scene which you're gonna see is a scene which was on paper, it was like a 3-page 4-page scene, 3-page 4-page monologue, which when we shot it, it was like a 7-minute scene. Like Vicky saying so Vicky obviously did a lot of improvisation, but this was like a very extensive scene talking about like what it feels to losing a loved one, and it was explained a lot. So we're gonna play this scene. Just watch this scene. There are like on the right hand side, there's an attachment of a screenplay which is there, which will show you how it was really written, and then after that you can see like is it matching or not, and then I'll tell you how we sort of arrived at this scene.
Never. तुम टाइम लो अपना. हमको शायद ही पता नहीं. तो किसी रेल से गुजरती है, मैं किसी पुल सा थरथराता हूं. आपके जाना होगा ना तो भाग दे. तो साला ये दुख कैसे खत्म नहीं होता बे. मारेंगे हम, समझ नहीं रहा हूँ, मारेंगे ले लो भाई मेरे गाड़ी तभी ले भाई
So if you see the scene, can you go back and can you open the first page? That no, just Masaan only. This one. So very simply, I'll tell you is like, so we shot the scene, like there were only 3 takes or 2 takes. 3 takes I think was taken, and Vicky was in a very intense zone because prepping for the scene is to like how will the scene play out and everything, and he had like really worked hard on it. And I remember everyone on the set while they shot this scene had cried massively because it was like a very emotional scene, and this was the scene that was actually there. So it starts with like, if you read the lines, is like KK says sab chutiaba hai sala, life, pyar, sex, death, sab, to tu kab pyar karta hai be blondwa. And then the conversation keeps going, like Rupan is saying, so all the friends are talking initially for the long period of time. Then go to the next page. Then it's like comes to Deepak, and Deepak says, "तुम लोग science पढ़े हो?" And Deepak says, "This is Deepak is Vicky Kaushal," and he says, "तुम लोग science पढ़े हो?" तो then it's like हम साला पढ़े हैं, पढ़े थे। आदमी पहले बंदर जैसा था, पूंछ होती थी, झुक के चलता था, फिर धीरे धीरे रेवोल्यूशन की थ्योरी आई। So now what he's talking about is basically Darwin's theory of evolution. Okay. And it was like a very simple way to explain it, that we are just born to, like, there's nothing here, like whatever we do, like there's no point like reminiscing over emotion and everything, we are just here to sort of live life. And it's like this man is just lost his loved one and he's feeling like is there any point to this life itself? That was the basic core thought of it. So we cut the scene, first cut 7 minutes long, very long, everyone feels very emotional, like in the edit room, Neeraj is like, "Ore, this is the best scene," and this and that. And I remember, strangely, Abhishek Chaubey is a part of the jury, and it was the first time we had shown the film to Abhishek, like first person to see the film, rough cut, was Abhishek Chaubey. He saw the film, he's like, guys, and we generally what we do is, when we cut a film, we show it to like a lot of fresh people. Like I really like when I cut every film, like Gully Boy, I've shown it to like almost 500 people. Like before it comes out in theaters or anything, it's just showing it to young people, showing it to mixed bunch, showing it to older people, showing just like how they read for the film. Like, are they able to understand the film? Are they able to get confused at any point? Is there anything that's seeming like, oh, I didn't get that emotion? Like, I'll tell you a fact about Gully Boy, which was very interesting later on. So when we did the screening, Abhishek Chaubey said, guys, the only scene I felt where Vicky was a little bit acting, or maybe like it was feeling like a little bit like you guys were pushing like this one, was this scene. And at that moment of time, we felt like, okay, what is he saying? Like, it doesn't make sense because this is our best scene and everything. And obviously you're attached to your scene, and because the set experience just carries through on the edit experience for Neerajan. So while the process was going on, we had like a French consultant who had come in, and because we were preparing for Cannes and we were like a French consultant, and she had mentioned very interesting things. She's like, do you need like so much to be said, kind of a thing? And she had just said it like in a very small manner. It wasn't like said in a like a very effective sort of a thing. And she just said it, is that something needs to be said? And that sort of stayed in my mind, and I'm like, actually that makes sense. And now what actually remained on the edit was nothing on the script. It was all the improvised line. The only line is "Sala tu kai khatam nahi hota." That's the line which said. Because what happened was, as soon as because all the other stuff which he had improvised felt very natural. वो suddenly पीछे मुड़ के तू किसी रेल से गुजरती है, because you can connect as a viewer, you connect, he's remembering the girl because वो गाना आया था, वो train था, and that's some sort of a, so you have a psychological connect where you're not saying anything specific. इसमें क्या था कि you are trying to emphasize, you are trying to say, oh, you know, there's this human being and this and that, and audiences never like being told to feel something. They want to feel for what it is. So that aspect of it is always like with any art form, like when you go to eat a food or something, you never want to be told like, oh, this is how you should feel while eating. It's like when you take a bite, you feel something, when you eat a chaat or you eat a jhalmudi or something, you feel something, you're like, oh, I want to have one more bite. It's really nice. It's as simple as that. It's like extracting emotion out of very organic way of emotion. So we completely removed the 7-minute scene into like 2.5-minute scene, and we completely stripped down to bare minimum dialogue, and that was the whole thing was about ki dukh khatam nahi hota, because he said everything random to actually say what he really wanted to say. Yeah, how the fuck can I not get over this pain which is there in my heart kind of a thing, because it's like when you, everyone, whoever has like fallen in love here, gone through a breakup, everything, everyone knows you go through a phase where you like, it's the first phase of any sort of relationship breaking is denial and everything, and he's like on the first stage, like it's literally like he's burnt her body day before and he's like just sitting with his friends and he's just not able to understand, so he's in a denial mode. So that denial mode is like him saying random things obviously connected to her, and eventually just saying, breaking down on saying what he really wants to say, and that line itself just summarizes the whole thing without us going into massively. So that's the basic understanding. When you say about like talking about scene editing, like something that can like really make you feel like, oh, how did this make you feel like you have achieved something, it's like when you actually have like constructed a scene from which was written in a very different manner to what it has eventually become, and then you see this becomes like the most talked about scene over the years. Like this has become a meme now, this has become like people share it as a meme on random things, and on very things, it's like it becomes like a cultural topic point. And because you just stayed on one line, if you had so much things said before this line, it wouldn't have had that impact. So it's that understanding when to strip down, when to remove stuff, to just bring down your thought very clearly. That's a very key nature, and that's when you achieve that, that's when you feel like that's the best way you can achieve a scene.
Wow, a big round of applause. So I just want to know, like when you edit a film like Masaan, or when you, which has a bit of hold, you know, in the shots, like you are holding it probably a bit more than any other film. And when you edit a Gully Boy or Kho Gaye Hum Kahan, so where you do a bit of snappy kind of edit, so how do you switch gears and things like that?
Switch gears is something like, as writers, like editors are like writers, but with you have a visuals to play with instead of words. So what happens is when you have a rhythm, which you have like your script has a certain sense of rhythm, and just when you read a script, you are like feeling like first page you are feeling like okay, it's a very slow film, like everything is a cut to the sky moves and everything, the clouds are moving, so you know okay, it's a atmosphere, slow moving thing and all that. And as soon as you are watching Pushpa, you are like the hero comes and enters the whole thing on the rock and he cuts this one, so you already your mind is pacing. So it's like a very simple understanding of like how words dictate and how visuals dictate a certain rhythm to the whole thing. So when you have a certain pace that builds up, when you watch something or when you create something, when you read something, is that's how you reflect it directly in your edit. And that's the easiest way to understand, because this is a film when I'm cutting Masaan, I know it's not a film which is about the cuts. It is about how much to hold. It's about how less to cut to have the maximum impact, because it's about feeling it. It's every moment. When I'm cutting Kho Gaye, that is also about feeling it. But because that's a new Gen Z film, like this is something for a current generation who's constant, it talks about film, about like how social media is constantly distracting. So it has to be cut in a way where it's moving from one thing to another thing, and yet like you don't know where it's headed kind of a thing till you actually arrive at it.
So during this process, sometimes creative instincts differ with the director.
See, it differs, but thankfully, like I think initial phase of career as an editor, you sort of like have to make your point proof, and once you have done that, now directors are willing to listen to you. They're willing to understand you, and I'm very open person by nature. I don't say this is the right way because I feel like there's no right way. You don't know what audience connects with, but you can check your own pulse to understand, do I feel something in this moment when like I don't know if you guys have seen, there's this Allu Arjun film which is like a South film. It's a full-fledged, like a climax is action sequence is like cut on a song. Now when you cut that sequence, you feel something. When you watch something, you feel something. So you have to go with your instinct, what you feel, and reflect on that. Sometimes your instinct, what you realize in future is your instincts are very not mainstream or not like you always think like. So that is the understanding one needs to have as an editor. Tomorrow you guys are going to edit your own films or direct your own film. It's like you have to understand what kind of thoughts that are there in your head, because a lot of filmmaking is just understanding yourself. A lot of like it's like understanding you are not someone who is gonna make an animal, or if you are writing an animal, or if you are writing a Gully Boy, you are some. So it's understanding what kind of voice that you come out with, because initially first when we start writing, when we start like telling, we are always inspired from, oh that's how that film did it, oh that's how Masaan did it, oh that's how this did. The idea is always look within to understand at a very basic nature what kind of, when you write a scene, when you think of a scene, what sort of a scene that comes to you and how do you present it. That itself will tell you okay, how you see the world in terms of like in at least that small idea which you have, which you want to say. So coming back to your question, so creative differences obviously happen, but with me and like I feel like I keep like some creative differences if it's happened too much. I feel like okay, this is your way. I understand. As a director, I give the director that much liberty. I wait to show the film to fresh people, and 80-90% time I'm mostly right in terms of like when we show it to fresh people. Like Gully Boy went wrong with like certain thing. It's like not so wrong, but we all were wrong in that sort of a thing. So there was this scene. Everyone here seen Gully Boy? Okay. So there was this scene which was at the end of the film, after just before Murad goes to perform in the club. अपना time आएगा उसके पहले में वो जेल जाता है. He goes to the jail to meet his friend. So in like a long, in when we were editing it, we thought the film is really long and people might just get like, because there's too many things happening and all that. Drop that scene. चाहिए नहीं, मतलब पता है वो उसका दोस्त पकड़ा गया, he is fine. Murad didn't like steal or whatever. So in one of the test screenings, one uncle was watching it, and he's like an old uncle, like in his 50s or something, and he's like कि अरे तुम लोग ने वो मुराद को दिखाया, वो स्टार्टिंग में तो चोरी नहीं करता है, बीच में अपना वो आज़ादी में वो गाड़ी चोरी कर रहा है and all that, उसके बाद में he is not getting reprimanded for it. So at that point of time we didn't get, like he didn't say it that clearly. He said कि he is also stealing and he is also becoming an artist by stealing kind of a thing. It's like not so great. So I lose faith on that. But his point was he connected with that hero. So when that hero was not stealing at the beginning, that feeling connected with him, because he's like, hey, he's a nice guy. All of them are stealing this car, but he's like, hey guys, we shouldn't steal the car. And now he's stealing the car and he's not even talking about it. So, and then we did a test screening on a bigger level for people, and it came up like that was a consistent problem across everyone. A lot of people felt that. And as soon as you put back that scene, it got solved, because you saw his friend getting reprimanded for what he did, and suddenly you feel like okay, the arc has completed, because of his friend he is able to survive today. and that become the friendship has become stronger because these two guys they went stealing, but one of them got caught, but the other friend is like you just go, I'm gonna be surviving, don't worry about me, मैं तो निकल जाऊंगा and everything, but तू छोटे तू अभी अच्छा काम कर रहा है, तू जाके कर and everything, and that sort of built the friendship very stronger, and that whole feeling of him going to अपना time आएगा became much more stronger, and that became like a very emotional scene where everyone got teared up. And that is like a sense of like things like where sometimes you do go wrong and then you just, but you have to keep an open mind. That's the only way I sort of work around.
Yeah, but Nitin, today you are a name in the industry,
Yeah.
and but someone like new one who starts afresh.
Yeah.
So how do they navigate this creative?
So when someone start new in the industry, navigation is make another option. The beauty of digital film editing is make another timeline. What you feel, you should completely try it out in another timeline and show it to some few people outside of a director. And just show it to few people and say, is that like thought wise, is it working or not working? Simple. Because digital you can make as many timelines as you can. There's no worry about that. So, and as soon as you make another timeline, show it to your few other friends and like, is this scene working? Are you missing anything? Is that scene was needed or what? And if they say it's not needed, then you show it to a director. And if the director still doesn't understand, let the director be like, okay, I have this cut, think about it. In the larger picture, once we reach the end, once we are fully done with the film, let's show the film to some people and let's show this cut also to some people. What do they feel? So the best way is to keep the whole conversation open where the director shouldn't feel like attacked. Because director has worked with the script for like with the writer for 2 years before you came into the process. Sometimes it's like I'm involved in the script also, but still you have to give because he has gone and shot the film. So he's emotionally much more attached with everything extra, and he's looking for you to have a perspective, and you have to be very strong about your perspective. You have to just keep another cut and just keep bouncing it off till the director realizes. Oh, actually that's interesting, that what you are saying is makes sense. I'll show you a scene from Gully Boy, which was written initially in the opening of the film. And I read the script and I called up Zoya. I was like, Zoya, I think, have we shot this scene? And she was like, yeah, we've shot this scene. And I was like, we might not need it. And this is like, this is the second day, like first day I met Zoya, and she sent me the script, and then after that I just called her up. And obviously we have never worked together, so it was too strong for me to say you don't need this scene. So she's like, how can you say it's not needed or something and all that. So at that moment of time I did say it. And once you see the scene, you will be able to understand. So just coming back to the point, it's like you have to stay strong and you have to keep your mind open. There is like a possibility that you will arrive at it. With every director, there's a different process. You have to figure how to reach your director's mind where it doesn't feel like he doesn't or she doesn't feel like you are imposing the idea. That sort of a thing.
One more question in today's context. Like primarily you used to work for a director, right? Like for a film. But with this OTT platforms, big platforms like Netflix or Amazon Prime coming in, there are a lot of agents in between, and their creative feedbacks also comes.
Yeah.
So is it difficult to work for this platforms like compared to films, and sometimes stupid feedbacks may also come?
Yeah, see, the thing is stupid feedbacks, and that will always come. There will be someone who has a problem with very random thing and you are like, इससे क्या problem हो सकता है? And but like the way to deal with it is to deal with stupidity or any kind, like it can come from the network or not. Sometimes it can come from a basic, your director also can give a stupid feedback and you are like, yaar kya bol raha hai? What are you saying also? So their very basic nature is keep an open mind. Sometimes stupid feedback can lead to some very interesting ideas, and you wouldn't have realized also, like अगर वो stupid feedback नहीं होता तो you wouldn't have tried something, and that trial made into something which eventually led up to like, oh wow, this is amazing, this is the best cut of the film and everything. Suddenly it lands up like that. But I don't feel like all these platforms which I interact with, I feel like there is a very healthy relation that they maintain. I don't know, maybe like at a certain stage and everything where I can just tell them, hey guys, this is working for us and everything, and let's stick to this. and they won't like argue over it. If there is something that feels like it's a 50-50 kind of they are also not sure and everything, but sometimes it might feel like they are saying something, so I would do it and like you watch it, and itself like they'll come back to like, what you were saying is right, let's have that moment or whatever that is there and come back to it.
Great. So I just want to know like what do you think, how does it affect audience perspective, like the process of editing? Like a layman who doesn't understand editing, no one comes out of the hall and say editing is good.
So no, like layman के लिए doesn't need to. I don't expect the layman to come out and say editing is good. But if the layman is saying, it's a good sign that editing is being understood, like at some level. And I feel like editing is good is a very basic nature if you've enjoyed the film. Okay, so film, especially feature film, is so much about the last act. Is like I was talking to someone yesterday, and I tell Sumant, who has film in Mithya here at the festival, and I said ki so many films you will watch the film and you said ki first half was so boring, like chal raha tha, it was going slow, but last minute picked up. It was really nice at the end. It's always, you always remember what you walk out with. You never remember anything that happened before. And we are in a generation which constantly keep forgetting. You watch a film today, 3 days later I'll ask you what film you saw, you will like, that film which I saw and everything and all that kind of a thing. So it will take you a beat to before remember, because you have watched a lot more Instagram content in between, lot more other content through everything, because there's insane amount of distraction we have in life now to just constantly move us away from what you have seen and all. So that is like the basic thing where there is to sort of have that feeling. I have like, if something is where you have felt like, okay, for a layman to understand is like, have you enjoyed the experience? Because if you are engaged in a story, it's like, that means the edit has done its job. That itself. Like Bahubali, or like when you watch RRR, I was like, I'm completely into the process. I'm watching Pushpa, I'm like, oh wow, I'm fully captivated. It's going from one thing to another thing to another thing. Or I'm watching Masaan, which is a very different zone of a film. Or I'm watching a court. Court can be slower for certain people. For someone like me who has worked on it also at a different level, it can be a very different thing. Like I feel like it's a very, like, because the pacing of it is perfect for what it aspires to be. So that's the thing. It's for a layman, it's like, if the layman has enjoyed the film, that itself is a good nature to say that the film is like well edited for him or how.